Welcome to Mission Possible, Dr. Cooper. This is where we bring powerful stories of resilience, empowerment, and innovation that transform lives. I'm Joseph VanFonda. I'm the CEO of the Disabled Veterans National Foundation. I'm a retired United States Marine Corps Sergeant Major. I am a wounded warrior. Your Mission Possible host today. I'm joined with my esteemed co-host, Dr. Marty Rossman. Dr. Marty Rossman, always a pleasure. It's always good seeing you. And I'm going to hand it over to my co-host, Dr. Marty Rossman.
Well, always good to see you too, Sergeant Major, and I'm thrilled you bring such great people on this show, and I'm glad to meet Dr. Cooper. I've looked into a bit of what he's done. It's really stunning, remarkable. Dr. Cooper, my area of interest for over 50 years has been how the mind and body interact, and largely in illness and health, and how the spirit, how the attitude, how mind-body techniques can be helpful to people in their struggles with both physical and mental health. And Joe has kindly invited me to develop a program we call Mission Possible, which is really a self-help program. It's kind of a distillation of the 7 most powerful and useful techniques I've found over the last 50 years in my practice and research. So I'm just thrilled to meet you and look at all the things that you've invented, continue to produce to help disabled veterans and others. And I'm looking forward to a discussion of how some of the mind-body skills we teach, what your orientation is to that. I know you can't just plug somebody into a device. They have to adapt and learn and be motivated. And I'm really curious to hear about that in the course of our talk today.
And today we're honored to have a special guest with us, Dr. Rory Cooper. Dr. Cooper is a distinguished professor at the University of Pittsburgh, an inventor and a pioneer of force and rehabilitation engineering. He's also a military veteran whose personal journey of overcoming adversity through innovation inspires countless lives. I want to welcome you personally, Dr. Cooper, to the Mission Possible podcast.
Well, thank you, Sergeant Major VanFonda. It's wonderful to be on your podcast. I know of the amazing work that Disabled Veterans National Foundation does, and of course, it's an honor to be your friend. And I think we've known each other for almost 20 years now. It's just pretty frightening.
Absolutely, and I tell you what, to be in your circle is an honor. It's a privilege. I just being around and feeling that essence that you have is just wonderful. I just love it. I just love it. So, Dr. Cooper, your story is one of resilience and transformation. And this is just a conversation that we like to have monthly. Dr. Dr. Marty Rossman and myself, and bringing on individuals that actually show that resiliency, not only for themselves, but show it within their community. And that's a force multiplier. And I believe that you do that. So, your story is one of resilience and transformation. I understand that. I personally know your story. Can you take us back to the moment when your life changed during your military service and how that experience became the catalyst for your incredible work that you do today?
Sure, a little bit. I was run over by I was hit by a bus, or sideswiped by a bus, and then run over by a truck while cycling for physical training, or PT as we call it. While I was serving in Germany, and after the truck struck me, I was laying on the street and I was still conscious, and I just remember I couldn't get up and I can't walk, and then I fell unconscious again, and then I woke up in the ambulance, and I was asked by the German ambulance drivers if I did a lot of sports or a lot of exercise, and I was able to say, yeah, I did. And I was taken to a local hospital that wasn't really able to take care for my wounds because the left front wheel of the truck ran over me. And so I wound up going to a trauma center nearby, which was set up to really to treat accident injuries from the local BASF factory. And fortunately, my brother-in-law, at the time he was Rosie, my wife now, of over 40 years, was my girlfriend at the time, and her brother was with me. And he went back and told Rosie and her parents, and they were able to notify the Army base. And I stayed there. I went on and off in consciousness. I was pretty in intensive care for about 3 weeks. Eventually got stabilized enough for the Army to send me home. So went through Frankfurt Army Hospital, and then, as often happens, the Air Force on a medical evacuation flight brought me to Andrews Air Force Base, to Walter Reed, and then eventually to a civilian hospital, then to the VA. And after I was able to, when I was in rehab, I decided I was going to go to college, and was able to enroll at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So I got injured on July 23rd of 1980 and started college in January of 1980. And wheelchairs were pretty bad at the time. And a lot of the wheelchairs you see in hospitals today were the type of wheelchairs that we used at the time. Um, and if you know anything about Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, it's a hilly campus, and it's a large campus, and pushing up and down those hills and moving around. But I was very fortunate in twofold. When I was in rehab, my recreation therapist was guy named Andy Fleming, who was a bilateral amputee above the knee, and he wound up to lead the Paralympics in Atlanta.
Mm.
And, introduced me to wheelchair sports, and because, like a lot of soldiers and Marines, we like doing PT, like exercise, like running. And so I think Andy recognized that. And I think that showed that you could be back and be physically fit and be active in life. And then when I got back home and started in college, I read a sign at the union saying, I'd like to start a basketball team, call this number. So I called that number, and it happened to be a Lance Corporal Tim Davis, who was a Marine injured in the Tet Offensive, and also a bilateral amputee. And Tim and I started a wheelchair basketball team, and Tim became my VA peer mentor, and sort of walked me through some of the processes, and helped got me introduced into basketball, but also just meet other veterans. And eventually, he took me to the National Veterans Wheelchair Games, which I still go to and compete in. And I know, DVNF and HERL have had booths next to each other, and even shared a couple booths at the games. And that was life transforming. And I was also very fortunate that my undergraduate advisor took a real strong interest in me, a guy named Saul Goldberg, and we worked to make sure that I could fully participate in the curriculum. So, and then my wife Rosie stayed with me. She came. She came, and we got married in California, and so I had a sort of a nexus of things. I'm very fortunate to the Vietnam veterans. They were, besides Tim, the other Vietnam veterans in the region were very good at helping me, learning how to negotiate the VA, and then learning how to just readapt to civilian life and to my disabilities. And as well as actually, the local Easter seals was very helpful, because I was under 21 when I got injured. I actually turned 21 in the hospital. And then and the Paralyzed Veterans of America, who are amazingly good at finding veterans early on who have had paralyzing injuries, and the support that they provided as well.
Yeah, wonderful organization. Yeah,
I'm kind of very lucky that you got to have I was fortunate because I had the right people who sort of knew what to do, and they believed in me, and provided opportunities.
Well, before I hand it over to Dr. Rossman, I know he's got got some questions for you and so forth. But if you go back to the day you were injured, right? And then of course you have a beautiful wife now, but she was your girlfriend at the time. And at the time, before you got hit on a bike, you know, your mindset was in a different mindset in terms of your military career, your relationship, you know, where did you want to go in terms of your career or college and so forth, till bam, you know, that one moment where all that evaporates, and then you have to figure out this soundbite that's out there now called the new normal, right?
Right.
This new normal just changes the trajectory of your life. How did you handle that? I mean, how exactly? So, how did you comprehend what happened? Oh my God, what's next? I mean, how did you the resiliency, the mindfulness, the strength? And I know that you looked at our Mission Possible program and platform. Did any of those um, positive training attributes played a role in terms of getting you through that trauma and to accept where you're at and then transform your mind to where you want to go? Is that, I mean, I didn't confuse you in terms of that ask, did I? Because I know it's personal.
Um, so there's a couple, I mean, as you know, in the military, there's a couple things that really help prepare you when these things happen, or can help prepare you. One of them is that sort of the concept of improvise, adapt, and overcome, right?
Right.
And I was a long distance runner as well, so I was, accustomed to, doing difficult things and overcoming challenges, and which you also learn in the military as well, right? Challenging yourself, finding out where your limits are, and kind of pushing yourself through what you think your limits are. To me, when I was first injured, I pretty quickly decided that I would, my career choices sort of become limited at that point, right? You're staying in the military no longer is an option. Um, and actually, a lot of other physical jobs become, if you're now with a spinal cord injury and using a wheelchair. Uh, and I had always had the goal eventually going to college, and of course, this sort of accelerated those plans. And I enjoyed when I was, I enjoy both physical activity and I enjoy engineering work and inventing and creating things. And I had done that because my parents had an automotive machine shop, and I was able to, even as a kid, play and invent things. And so it just became pretty quick to me that I just need to go to college, study engineering, and start a new life path. And the other part about it is that frankly, I wanted Rosie to marry me, and I knew that I had to I'd have to get an education and get a decent job. And then early on, when I started playing wheelchair basketball, you could kind of see the people that got jobs and had families and sort of had reasonably adjusted. And then you also saw people who had not adjusted so well, and were sort of struggling in life. And a lot that time, this is prior to the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, so finding a place to live was difficult, getting any kind of credit was difficult, getting a credit card was difficult for people with disabilities. Traveling, most times you couldn't rent a car, even sometimes you couldn't fly. And so the only way I could see to get over that was, one, work on those problems myself, and secondly, to create new technologies that would make it better, right? And so
Mhm.
then and so that's kind of the road I went down. And I was also at the time in the early 1980s was a very kind of a really transitional time for people with disabilities. The Rehab Act of 1973 had been passed, but it really hadn't been implemented into regulation. So, you could pass a law, but it really doesn't make any difference until the regulations get passed. And that didn't take till 1977, 1978.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they start to roll out. And so then, curb cuts and accessible parking spaces get expanded, and opportunities for school start to expand. And
Mhm.
people with disabilities started building their own wheelchairs and starting their own companies. Jim Martinson, a Vietnam veteran, also amputee. There's kind of a theme there for some reason. The amputees have always been good to me. And then Marlon Hamilton, who was also from the same region of California I was from, started forming the Quickie Company. And Jeff Minnebreaker down in Southern California has formed the Quadra Company, and Bobby Hall out in Massachusetts. And so there's a lot of creativity going on, in wheelchair sports. And so that I found kind of a home there. And so, being able to straddle between
Mhm.
engineering, the veterans community, and sports. And a lot of veterans were involved in sports. Like I said, the National Veterans Wheelchair Games, where I went down there with Tim. I've got a great picture. I had some mechanical problems between one of the races with my wheelchair, and there's one of the VA photographers snapped a picture of my grandfather, Tim, and a whole bunch of other Vietnam vets that were sort of surrounding me, all trying to fix my chair so I could get off to the next race. And so it's that community really was important to me. And so that, I think that helped. You need people to, there's a saying, you got to see it to be it. And that,
Right.
I think, helped me. And then also, and then the sports, and then the camaraderie, right? The people circling around you to help out. So, that's, when 9/11 happened, that became clear to me. That was a life-changing event for me, actually, because I realized that this was my time to give back and take that leadership role that I saw the Vietnam veterans do for me. And so, that got me. I'd already been actively involved with the VA. I stayed involved with the VA. Actually, I went as a patient and as a,
Mhm.
Bill, and then I did my postdoc with the VA, and then I worked with the VA. But and I worked with the first Gulf War. Some of my people I served in the first Gulf War, and we were in touch. And I can tell you a funny story. So in 2023, the summer of 2023, I got a message from my assistant that said, Captain Martin wants to know if Specialist Cooper wants to do a Volksmarch this weekend.
Wonderful. Gotta love those.
And she said, you know what this message is about? I said, I know exactly what this message, but that was my first company commander. And he is active in AMVETS, and they were having their annual convention in Pittsburgh. And he remembered that I was living in Pittsburgh. And this is like 40 some years later. And he went down to the exhibit hall, and he found the VA, and he goes, so I have a funny question for you, but I had this soldier in my unit once. His name was Rory Cooper. Do you know how I might be able to get hold of him? And they said, Dr. Cooper? Dr. Cooper's famous. We know how to get a hold of Dr. Cooper. And so he called my office, and we wound up getting together and having dinner, which was wonderful. And then
Awesome.
it's a funny story, doesn't end there. And so then AMVETS decides to move its national headquarters from Washington, D.C. to Washington, Pennsylvania. And he tells the executive director of AMVETS and the president of AMVETS, or the commander of AMVETS, you need to go out and reach out to one of my former soldiers in Pittsburgh. He's got a lot of connections in Western Pennsylvania. So it just goes to show you that those connections are lifelong, right? And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Turning adversity into empowerment. I mean, it's just, I know there's more intricate things that transpired from being injured to, um, healing and, creating a new path for yourself and knowing that, all those things that you were able to do, you couldn't do anymore, but with the empowerment and you turning that adversity into empowerment by mind and by body and by your spirit, your resiliency just definitely propelled yourself. And I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Rossman right now, but I'll tell you what, it's always wonderful talking to you, learning more and the impact that you're making in the world of disabilities, and we'll talk more about your patents and so forth as well. Dr. Cooper, and as were Dr. Martin.
So Dr. Cooper, I'm kind of wondering, and you don't have to go into this if you don't want to, but it sounds like with the little bit that I know about you from looking online and from what you've said, it sounds like you were kind of a problem solver from the get-go, working in your parents' automobile. What was it, an auto repair facility, and tinkering and making things and fixing things. And then I heard you say with your indoctrination into the military and the improvise, adapt, overcome, you had a kind of a mindset going in. It sounds like you're fortunate enough to have to meet good people who came to your aid along the way and introduce you to things that were of interest to you, and you adapted and moved forward. Was there a time when, mentally or emotionally you were, in trouble? Where there, I have to imagine there were dark days, and maybe not. People are different, but did you go through? Had to go through a difficult mental or emotional time, and if so, what was helpful to you then? And if not, do you just attribute that to your innate orientation towards life, to a faith, to a belief, or what helped you through that
so,
period?
that's a great question. I, I'm a forward thinking, sort of optimistic person. And like I said, I am a problem solver, which worked out well being an engineer and a person with disability. Both of those are really important traits to have. Um, of course, I have bad moments and good moments like everybody else. But I didn't really go down to a really dark spot for any length of time. Mainly because I was, my life philosophy has always been set short-term goals and just build upon them, right? So set a goal, try to achieve it, set another goal and try to achieve it. And,
Absolutely.
then I think I learned, I was, a friend of mine shared with me a quote um, a long time ago, and he said, you're really competitive, but you ought to give thought um, to be better for other people rather than better than other people. And so, and that's about the selfless service we learn in the military, right? And serving others and serving my fellow brothers and sister veterans and people with disabilities as well. So, I think once you find a cause and a calling, you have you could always draw on that to pull yourself out of the dark spots. And um, so that's typically what's happened to me. The spinal cord injury is a wicked injury, right? It's a complex and it comes with a lot of challenges. And so there are going to be time, and so it takes a while to realize there are going to be um, some bad days, right? And there are going to be some bad times, and but so far there's always been good times that have followed those, and so it's part of it is fighting through. And I even since my injury in 1991, I think it was. I developed syringomyelia and started losing the function of my arms, and had to go back into surgery um, and fight my way back from that. I used a power chair for a while, and then in 2019 at the Marine Corps Marathon, I had a very bad accident and wound up in a coma. And I will give credit to Sergeant Major Green, who was the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps at the time, came and visited me every day in the hospital and kept Rosie company. And I was in a coma for 3 days and had to go through rehab and everything again. It's always, one of the things I believe is if you're being physically and mentally fit and find the things that you love to do, and be surrounded by people you love, then you can come back. And so I have known a few people that have not adjusted or not and it's taken their own lives. I would say it's hard on everybody that knows them or they've touched. It always makes me feel sad that they didn't, reach out, or maybe we just didn't understand when they reached out. And because there's life. I've been so fortunate. Life has so much to offer. I had no idea when I was a kid that I would wind up here. And especially after I was injured, really I was just hoping that I did have the goal of going to the Paralympic Games. And I was able to achieve that in 1988. And then fortunately, I've been able to stay connected to the movement all the way to this year. And I've met some really wonderful people. And that really helps too, as well. So I'm not sure that's the answer you're looking for, because my path is maybe a little bit different than some, but I think everybody has their own path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that. Yeah, there's a question in the chat room from Bill. He said, do you think wheelchair sports should be promoted more as part of the recovery process for veterans with disabilities or injuries after service?
Actually, I think all of the adaptive sports should be promoted more. The warrior transition organizations like the Marine Wounded Warrior Regiment, they incorporate various adaptive sports and recreation recreation programs.
Absolutely.
There's the Warrior Games. The Veterans Administration has a series of National Veterans Wheelchair Games, the Summer Sports Clinic, the Winter Sports Clinic. I'm not probably going to remember them all, but the Tea Tournament. They actually have the Creative Arts Festival and the Golden Age Games. I think they're all really important. There's some not-for-profit organizations that run some regional events or other events as well. I do think if there's wheelchair sports are really important. I also think sports events for veterans, and then also integrated sporting events like the national championships or regional games. So you can learn from people who are not veterans, but also have people with disabilities. But there also is a real benefit to getting veterans together as well, or
Right.
military service members.
And Dr. Cooper, that's one of the reasons why, and I know Dr. Marty, I don't know if I spoke about this. It's one of the reasons why the Marine Corps at the time, at the Wounded Warrior Regiment and above, under General Amos and so forth, wanted to have Wounded Warrior Games. If we have wounded warriors that are actually in the military of combat, or active duty injuries and so forth, in training and so forth, to remind them that mind over body is real, and to have an array of sports that can remind those wounded warriors that the mind can prevail over body injuries, from archery to you name it. And as you know, you participate in the Wounded Warrior events, and I've been there, of course, as a sergeant major and so forth. It is a wonderful platform to instill and remind our warriors that they can prevail and do wonderful things out there in the real world and don't settle for a new normal, right? And I think Wounded Warriors, the games and the trials and so forth, it's a reminder. That's what it is. It's a reminder. So when they do transition out, they know they can achieve higher. And here's the thing, though, and I'll hand it back over to Dr. Rossman, is that everything's based on choice. So if our listeners are listening right here, and I know that they are, you wake up in the morning, and you transition out of the military, you're a veteran, you're a disabled veteran at some point or whatever, and then you have some monkeys on your back, right? You got some issues going on in your little world right now. And listening to your story of resiliency from getting hit by a bus back in 1980, that changed the whole course of your life because of your mindfulness, your strength, and not to mention the resources around you and the love that you had around you, help propel you, to the next chapter of your life. And you've been doing extraordinary, wonderful things with that chapter. I just hope that the listeners can to see you, feel you, hear you, that because of choice, they too can raise the bar in their life. It's getting them to the door. It's getting them through the door. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? We all know that phrase, right? But if you're in the military, we can drown you. You like it or not. We know it's good for you. I think that your story of resiliency sets the example for any wounded warrior, any veteran that's fallen by wayside, let it be because of PTSD or whatever their demon is at the time. This right here is reminding all of us that anything is possible. So I just think it's phenomenal story. I love what you're about. I love your heart. I love your desire. I love the way you think. I love that you're a problem solver, and I love that you bring individuals into your world and your circle to share, the challenges that you embraced, but also share the choices that you made and also the innovative ideas and so forth. So one of the things that stands out about your work, Dr. Cooper, is how it impacts every aspect of life for individuals with disabilities. Can you tell us more about some of your groundbreaking innovations and how they promote not just the physical independence, but also the mental and spiritual resiliency in that individual?
Sure. Funny thing that I say to myself sometimes, and this from the Marine Corps, right? Sometimes you just have to embrace the suck.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of that out there. So
that I do remind me in the bad times, right? Sometimes you
absolutely.
right?
Self-motivation. Self-motivation is pretty
Yeah.
much what it is.
And I'll tell you just one more funny sports story. So I've had this great interaction with Marines over the years. So I compete in the National Veterans Wheelchair Games. There was a Marine injured about the same time I was, same type of injury from Boston, Mark. And so Mark and I compete in the exact same events, same class every year, and have for 30 some years.
God bless.
So even at the games, people they find it funny because there's always this Mark and Rory competition going on. And, there's a little bit of jiting about Army, Marine Corps. And so, Mark and I are great frenemies, right? Friends off the court and enemies when we get on the playing field. So, those are great relationships to have.
Absolutely.
So my scientific and engineering work, it's funny, it started basically for my own needs, right? The technology wasn't very good. And so I, and as I was studying engineering, my skills got better. I worked on more and more complex problems. And then, of course, you realize that you develop friends that have challenges that you can maybe address with technology, and you have other people as well, and then it kind of grows. My lab, the Human Engineering Research Laboratories of the University of Pittsburgh and U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, we sort of focus on we do it more systematically now by doing large surveys and conducting focus groups and interviews to identify the technology challenges that people are facing that might be able to be solved by technology. Now we focus mostly on mobility and manipulation, so things that move people around and things that help people that have a limited use of their arms and arms to maybe move things around. Mainly, I realize that you can't be all things to all people, and you have to rely on. Our team is really focused on the technical and engineering aspects, although we do have MDs and physical and occupational therapists, and even counselors working with us. You need counselors to help you figure out about adoption and whether you're doing things correctly. And some of the things that we've worked on. So early on, I did a lot of adaptive sports equipment, so racing wheelchairs, some work on hand cycles, and it's great to see those areas have kind of matured. And although it's kind of fun to see that some of the technologies that I developed in the 1980s are still in use today. And we expanded when I got introduced to people who use powered mobility. Worked on some of the digital controls and the algorithms and the interfaces like the joysticks and different ways to access a power wheelchair. We've expanded that to change people's lives, and then of course carpal tunnel syndrome, rotator cuff injuries were very common. And back in the late 1980s, I kind of realized, how come some of us are pushing our wheelchairs like 120 miles a week for wheelchair racing, and they don't have any more injuries than people that don't push their wheelchairs very much at all. And so I started studying that, and that I invented a device called the Smart Wheel, and then that evolved into ergonomic push rooms. Those are the manual wheelchair to push. But also worked on, and those are now, ergonomic push rooms are pretty widely used, and carpal tunnel syndrome, rotator cuff injuries are not as common as they used to be, and a lot has to do with lighter, better wheelchairs. I've gotten into robotics, and we do some really cool robotic work, both robotic wheelchairs and robotic manipulators to allow people to drink, to have a drink by them, drink without having somebody else, hold the glass or.
I remember, I was at your HERL facility, and I think that you were prototyping it still at the time, testing it.
Yep. Yeah. So, now we're still doing some of that work, but we're focusing also on education or workplace, so more people can get into science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medicine fields and have their own career options. I really do believe that if possible, returning to work is a powerful tool for reintegrating into society, and of course it provides discretionary income, so you have a little more flexibility in what you can do.
Right.
Anywhere. We're also now involved in adaptive transportation. We want to make sure that as we go through electrification of vehicles, that they provide more opportunities for people with disabilities, not fewer. Same thing true with autonomous vehicles and transportation systems. But now airline travel. We've got a few projects we're looking at. I'd really think it would be beneficial if more people who use powered wheelchairs could remain seated in their powered wheelchair when they fly, for example. That would allow greater access to specialized healthcare, ability to to meet with family and friends.
But it's also difficult to try to put a wheelchair on an aircraft, but you don't. You pretty much, that's the hard part. I can understand, I mean, you got the width. I mean, the wheelchair is not going to go through the width of an aisle, as you know. And then, of course, they would have to widen the aisles of an aircraft or maybe even a bus, and then have that empty spot where the wheelchair can actually be maneuvered and lock in place pretty much on an aircraft. I know you're thinking about those things, whatever. Um, and that's the innovativeness is if you go back to the 80s, from the Disability Act not even being there to where you're at now, I think that you're at the forefront on pushing, um, new changes to laws and so forth that can help with individuals with disabilities and so forth. It's just unbelievable how you're constantly looking for change and you're being innovative in terms of that. I got a quick question for you. I'm gonna hand it back over to Dr. Rossman. What about with the technology of GPS and the technology of remotes and so forth, where you can actually hit a button and start your vehicle? What about using some of that technology and like, hey man, I'm on the couch here. Where's my wheelchair? And the wheelchair pulls up, or certain, as you know, our vehicles they have sensors, right? So I know you're innovative and these things are on your mind. Do you have something like bringing some of that innovative science and engineering into your world?
We do. We actually have two very similar projects, very similar to what you're saying. Working with a company called Lucy out of Colorado on integrating sensors into powered wheelchairs so that people have difficult driving, for example, to a stroke or vision impairment or other conditions. So, maybe to get from one room to another a little bit easier, stay on the sidewalk easier. We're also, we have a project we're working on where you have like a robot with a robotic arm on it. So if you get in bed and you realize, oh, I'd like to get a glass of water, you can send your robot to go get the glass of water. Or if you drop your remote or your book on the floor, it can pick it up and bring it to you.
Geez, Rosemary's gonna love that one there.
So, yeah, I think that's and we're thinking along those lines too, right? Because one of the things, technology, assistive technology, we usually don't have a lot of money to do it. So we have to rely on breakthroughs in other fields of science. But although right now I'm working with on a project with some colleagues to develop also better batteries for power wheelchairs that are
Right.
small.
Are you using lithium, or is that on your?
So I don't think lithium is the future for us. Lithium has, I mean, there are batteries, there are more tires that use lithium. The problem is that lithium batteries, you can't fly with them most of the time unless you have small enough batteries. And there's other fire hazards and other problems that come with them. So I think there are other battery technologies. It's really kind of cool that AI is sort of discovering new battery technologies by basically searching different chemical combinations and how that might be new type of batteries that don't have the thermal runaway problem. But we've got to replace lead acid, and we probably have to replace lithium ion or lithium polymer batteries with some of the other technologies. I think there's a real promise in like sodium ion, sodium batteries.
Mhm.
Also, there are also new battery technologies that don't necessarily rely so much on rare earth metals. So there'll be.
What about putting like a windmill on the back of a wheelchair, something like
Yeah, windmills probably aren't really
that?
good. Uh,
Trying to find that alternate energy source. I think that's the problem solve nature that you're in right now is making something lighter, that's more efficient, that can actually last longer and move that veteran a little bit further along as well. And I know that you're constantly looking. I know are you using AI a lot now, or are you going to start incorporating AI in some of the strategy in terms of creating adjustments or new changes to the wheelchair or to maybe even prosthetics?
Yeah, well, we've been using AI and machine learning for like virtual coaching and monitoring for some time now. We continue to do that. Um, but it's alternative power sources. If anybody, if any of your listeners are in the San Antonio area, they should go to Morgan's Inspiration Island because we developed the first wheelchairs that are driven totally by compressed air and
Ah,
are
interesting.
submersible.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Bring up the old hydrogen car, you know,
yeah.
hydrogen wheelchair.
So these compressed air wheelchairs, they could be used underwater. So it opened up water parks, splash pools, wave pools, all those sorts of things that were kind of off limits for powered chair users. So it doesn't all have to be battery powered.
Right.
And then we are working on some new battery technologies. We're even looking at there are new a lot of power wheelchairs that have like power seat function or even robotics. They use like what they call electrical actuators, electrical linear actuators. Some companies have really started to pioneer the work in in uh, in hydraulic actuators, like electromechanical hydraulic actuators, and those can do some really amazing things. Um, but we're start there's a pretty cool research called microfluidics, and
Interesting.
we're looking at that as well for expanding function of devices too.
Well, we have a question here from Tom F. He goes, that shift from better than to better for hits home for me, he says. It's something I've been trying to start applying in my own life. Have another question. How do you keep your mindset strong on tough days when you feel like you're not making progress?
That's a great question. I think there's twofold. Like I said, set small goals, right? Then build upon the small goals. Um, sometimes you just think, tomorrow's another day, right? We'll get through today, and then tomorrow will be another day. Uh,
Mhm. Mhm.
and uh, and then, Admiral McCraven said, start with small victories, just like getting up and making your bed in the
You can
morning.
have bed in the morning. Absolutely.
And that's how sometimes on the bad days, it's like, let's get up, get out of bed. All right, let's make the bed, let's get dressed, let's get out of the house, right? And
Short-term goals. That's what I based my military career on short-term goals because that short-term goal is like whittling away at that long-term grit goal, if you want to call it that. We're military is based on short-term goals. You turn a corner, you set a goal. Turn the other corner, you set a goal, and so forth. We
yeah,
have another question right here. He goes, thank you for sharing your story, Dr. Cooper. I've heard of you before when I was reading about the stairs climbing the wheelchair. You
yeah.
do amazing work. Really appreciate what is one of the coolest or most useful devices in your opinion. What is, he's saying, that you've helped to create? What stands out the coolest that you created?
Um, so nobody's asking the coolest. They're saying, what's your favorite
Well,
bit?
what's your favorite? What's your best? What do you think though? I mean, what's the coolest? What's the intriguing?
What's your favorite child?
Absolutely, all of them.
All of them. That's the answer. Actually, the real answer for me is the my the things I'm most proud of is the creation of HERL itself, and that it's been around for over 30 years.
And
And
what is HERL? What is HERL, actually?
it's the Human Engineering Research Laboratories. There's about 60 to 70 of us that work together uh, to create technologies with people with disabilities, and especially targeting our veterans with disabilities, um, to try to make their life better. Basically, providing greater mobility or greater ability to interact with the environment. Um, we build a lot of things. We write software. Um, we're a very kind of physical space, but yeah. But I mean, some of the inventions that have been most impactful, I would say, would be the power wheelchair interfaces in the joystick and control algorithms, the power wheelchair controller work, the ergonomic work on wheelchair setup and wheelchair push-ins, and then I think our pneumatically powered wheelchair really is at least opening up new environments. But some things are pretty simple. A few years ago, I was approached by a Coast Guard veteran, actually, and rescue diver who had multiple limb loss, and it was a reservist. He was a computer scientist in his day job, and said he would like to use a computer. He'd like to have a computer mouse, and we invented basically the first prosthetic hook compatible computer mouse, and pretty much the VA provides us to any veteran who can use one. And it's not a large population, it's really impactful for those people. I'm really excited right now on the project I'm working on with another Marine.
Yeah, I love the jarheads.
Yeah, Captain John Kunaholm, who went on after lost his arm in Iraq to go on and get a degree in biomedical engineering, and John and I are working on new prosthetics technology.
Wonderful.
And so I'm pretty excited about how that's going to change the prosthetic future of prosthetic arms and provide more options for people. So I'm excited. I think one of the beauties about my job, and I think what makes me happy, is that I get excited about all the different projects we're working on, and I get also excited when other people. We had people from NASA come and visit us this week. We had,
Awesome.
a couple of weeks ago, from the pharmaceutical industry come and work with us, talk with us. That's also exciting. And then a couple of weeks ago, I got to go to the White House and looking on planning for economic development, including people with disabilities. And from the Marine Corps.
Are you working on are you part of the Doge?
Not familiar with the Doge, but no, but I'm familiar with on the President's Committee on Inclusive Innovation. To me, that from the Marine Corps, I'd rather, if I can, shape the battlefield than respond.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you have been shaping the battlefield in terms of disabilities, if you think about it. If you look at the growth of where we are in wheelchair science and innovativeness, and to make life just a little bit more comfortable with individuals with the disabilities of your nature, and either even more, I like how you are setting. You're creating the left and right peripheral in terms of the battlefield, and I think that you're setting the standard out there. How many patents do you have right now?
I have pretty close to 40 that are either awarded or pending, and I have more inventions than patents because not everything is worth patenting or patentable.
Right.
Like in adaptive sports, we don't tend to patent things in adaptive sports because the market's so small.
Mm-hmm.
Really want the patent to get in the way of people.
Right. And I know it's a process in terms of establishing it and filing and the cost and things of that nature. And yeah, I understand that completely. I know it's arduous at some point. If you can give, every day we have veterans that wake up that are dealing with life challenges. And I believe that all life challenges can be managed. I believe that, we go to the gym, as you know, we work on our triceps, biceps, whatever, but do we ever sit and think about our mindset? Why do we hold on to things that we can't control? Why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? I believe that Mission Possible, our platform on mind, body, and spirit, gives those individuals tools to understand a little bit more, and break down the attributes that can lead up to some of those negative things that they feel, and help them, work through those life challenges. And I believe that all life challenges can be managed. And I believe that we are in control of our lives. And just listen to your story of resiliency, from being injured in 1980, getting hit by a bus and so forth, and just your whole world gets turned upside down. But that resiliency, that seed, those short-term, long goals that you created, and you propelled yourself to be a leading doctor in engineering at the head of Pittsburgh University, working with the Veterans Administration, and being innovative for the good of our veterans. It's just unbelievable. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for being your friend. I'm thankful for learning from you, and to have that opportunity to have you on our podcast as well. But I'll tell you what, I'm always inspired with it. I'm going to come see you after the new year. I promise you that, Dr. Cooper, and check out your new, not your new, but I know you're always updating your Human Engineering Research Laboratory and so forth. But on behalf of Disabled Veterans Nest Foundation, I want to donate $10,000 to you. All right. So just please email me where you want the check to be mailed to. I'll be in office on Monday. I'll talk to my CFO and so forth, and we'll get that in the mail. And that $10,000 is just a beginning. As you know, I'm always in support of you, and I want to rekindle that relationship, because I know that we've all been busy and so forth. And I'll tell you what, it's wonderful seeing you again. You're a wonderful friend. I just always been motivated by your enthusiasm for change, your enthusiasm to evolve, and I think you set the example, not only for me, but for anyone listening out there that's having a bad day. Check out this bad day that is making great days for other disabled and at-risk veterans. And I'll tell you what, it's awesome, brother. Awesome. Awesome.
You're not Sergeant Major VanFonda. You're a real inspiration to me too. The Marines have always been good to me, and and I'm always happy to help. And it's been a pleasure to work with. I think I've worked with you at the DVNF since you got there.
Absolutely. I believe in your mission. I believe in your innovativeness. I know where the need is, because I'm hearing it right now. Here's the thing though, you're on the battlefield. You're not the guy sitting in headquarters, calling the shots. You're boots on the ground. You've always been boots on the ground, and that's where you like it. You like to be out on the ground. You like no bad ideas is a bad idea with you.
Right.
And that's what I love about having conversation with you. I know I throw some things at you once in a while about certain ideas and so forth, but there's never a bad idea having conversation with you, because you can always make that bad idea relevant to something that could be a great idea. And it's always been wonderful. How's your wife doing? Your wife doing well?
She's doing well. Yeah, she's doing great. So that's we're both very happy. We got to see her mother turns 97 in February.
God bless her.
And
God bless her. God bless her.
got to see her a couple of weeks ago. That always makes Rosie happy.
If you can say something to the audience about overcoming or learning more about yourself before to help eliminate some of the bad thoughts. I mean, what can you say in terms of resiliency, or give advice to some of our listeners right now?
I think the advice is, try to find something you love, something you're passionate about, and put your heart into it and pursue that. I think that's. I also think that first, if you're feeling bad or you're in a tough spot, tell somebody. Go get some help. You shouldn't be battling this alone. And I hope that, like me, you'll find people who are willing to help and find things for. But the other thing is just like you said, set small goals, work to achieve them, and then just keep resetting, and eventually you never know, you'll have achieved some really great things.
Wonderful. I'm sure you had an opportunity to look at our Mission Possible platform, and I was wondering if I can get your thoughts in terms of the material that's free. It's always going to be free for all the service members and veterans that fought to keep our country free. And I was wondering if I can get some of your intake on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great platform. I know you've experienced some of the same problems that a lot that your audience has, and that's a target for Mission Possible. And of course, you work with the Wounded Warrior Regiment, and then now with the DVNF over a number of years. You've seen it firsthand, right? So
Absolutely.
you're coming from a place of experience, and then and you've brought in experts in the field. I'm by no means an expert in resilience or in in psychological impairments or the challenges some face. I had myself post-traumatic stress.
Mhm.
Run over by a truck, you start to get a little bit anxious when you start to see trucks. Uh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It takes a while to get used to that. It was a little hard driving on the highways when I first got injured. And um, and so you just get help. I've been fortunate. My care in the VA has been pretty excellent. And and one of the things my physicians, I've been pretty fortunate to have some really good VA doctors, and the common theme I find out about is when they truly believe that you're the center of the team, right? And whether it's a civilian doctor or a VA doctor or a military doctor, they get that right connection. I Some of the doctors I work with at Walter Reed, and some of them actually wound up treating me on occasion. They really get it as well. I mean, they've been treating wounded since 9/11,
Absolutely.
and then like I said, in my case, helping others through technology and engineering, and then also adaptive sports really they made they're important components of my life. And I've just met so many wonderful people like you, um, and then I and if you get the chance, if uh, go to the Warrior Games, for example, or volunteer at one of the adaptive sporting events.
Absolutely.
It's it's contagious just to see. Uh, if anything, I think we could see how provide more opportunities for veterans with hidden disabilities. The Warrior Games and the Disabled Veterans Winter Sports Code, Summer Sports Code do provide those opportunities. Um, and um, but uh, we could always provide more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell you what, I love your brother. I love what you're about. I love your energy. I love your mindset. I love your innovativeness. I love the impact that you're making in our world right now. And I just want to let you know that I'm thankful for being your friend, and thank you for being on Mission Possible. I believe that all life challenges can be managed, and you are a flagpole of resiliency. And I can't wait to see you after January. And please send me the address where I can send that acknowledgement letter of the donation that DVNF will be giving you, Dr. Cooper, and Pittsburgh University. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you on here. I apologize for Dr. Rossman. He had to get pulled off. He's a physician as well, so he's always on call and so forth. And it's been wonderful. And we will connect, you and I, have that cold beverage of our choice at that wonderful German restaurant. How's that?
Thank you so much, Major. It was always a pleasure to talk with you, my friend. Uh, I love you too, and bye.
All right, brother. You have a wonderful day. God bless you.
You too.